my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and the producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. Be one code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. Be one act.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. What's going on? What's growing on? What is growing on? Welcome to B1 Ag Daily Bread Podcast. I'm John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brown, the MC. Here at B1 Ag, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, marketing, health, food, nutrition, economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome Black to the garden. Today we're going to discuss value. Now, value the definition of value is the regard that something is held to deserve the importance of worth or usefulness of something. Now, that's just a standard definition of value. Now, when we're speaking in economics, the economic definition of value is the worth of a good or service determined by people's preferences and the trade-offs they choose given their scarce resources. Now, here at B1 Ag, we push the value of agriculture, the ability of you to be able to produce your own food, and also the value of having a secure food system. Now, we're going to look at agriculture, food security, and also the ability to produce your own food in this dichotomy of value. And hopefully we can shed some light on a few things and change, hopefully increase our feelings of value when it comes to the food system and agriculture. So today's story that we will be presenting to y'all today, resist the biscuits, get to the bread. Resist the biscuits, them good old butter biscuits. Resist the biscuits and get to the bread. Farmer Brown, let's go.
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. Hope everybody's doing well. Looking forward to this grand harvest. But when we say this word biscuits, shout out to the sister Vicky Diller and Tariq Nasheed. I think they coined that term butter biscuits. We're talking about value. You know, when we think about a butter biscuit, there's somebody that economically their taste is satiated by having a butter biscuit. And what do these mean? We think about this concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is an $8 billion a year industry in North America, right? When we have this conversation about butter biscuits, it isn't just, people selling themselves out for whatever. It's actually an industry. And to preface this conversation, so DEI is a corporate litigation shield meant to protect those in power from the people over whom they wield it. The industry arose in the early 60s to avoid inaction. John F. Kennedy outlined at the beginning of the decade in Executive Order 10925. Kennedy told government contractors to take affirmative action to ensure that employees be treated fairly. irrespective of their race, religion, or nationality. Shortly after, the Civil Rights Act became a law following a series of blood-stained boycotts and marches. Legal policies trapped DEI in the fear of legal repercussion and made corporations eager to avoid splashy lawsuits. So when we talk about agriculture, here at B1 Ag, we talk about agriculture, right? Agriculture is the production of food, fuel, and fiber. We know everybody on this planet, everybody on Turtle Island, everybody across the diaspora has to eat. And so this dynamic of DEI is very prevalent in agriculture. When we have our talk about reparations, when we have our talks about, just certain litigation from the governmental body, a lot of times we see this process of throwing a token, throwing one or two of y'all that fit in these boxes into this. And so I don't have to allocate tangible resources to the rest of them. And so I look forward to deep diving into this and really evaluating. Now, is a biscuit worth losing your access to the wheat and the bread? You're on mute, bro.
Here, we're just going to show you a video. When we say value, some people think of money. So we're just going to show you a short video just outlining the brief history of finance, money, currency.
Now let's consider the concept of money as an abstraction of value. Money is as old as human civilization, and civilization itself is reliant on possessing ways in which to exchange, account for, and transfer value. What once started as barter trade, trading goods for goods, was replaced using standardized token money. Gold and silver were the first universally accepted natural choices for money. Actually, they fit the bill so well that they were the primary form of money for centuries across the globe and have been instilled in human culture. I bet when I say gold, you instinctively think of value or wealth. After this came paper money, a more user-friendly way to carry and move around value compared to precious metals. China was the first to adopt it in the 7th century. However, the Western world didn't catch up on this monetary innovation until Marco Polo introduced it to Europe around the 13th century. Even then, the first European banknotes weren't issued until the 17th century. It took people several centuries to accept the new paradigm at the time and shift from gold and silver coins to banknotes backed by these same precious metals as the widely used form of money. This led to the birth of the gold standard. The banknotes themselves didn't hold any intrinsic value like gold or silver coins do. Instead, paper money was backed by precious metals like gold and silver stored in a treasury vault somewhere. Think Fort Knox. The banknotes represented the right to collect said precious metals from a bank. More convenient than taking a wheelbarrow of gold bullion to the post office to pay the mortgage. This was the case until 1944. At the end of World War II, yet another related system was introduced, the gold exchange standard, under the Bretton Woods Agreement. This meant that many countries fixed their national currency's exchange rates to the US dollar, which was in turn convertible to gold at a fixed rate. Not only that, but this convertibility was no longer available to individuals or companies, only to central banks. However, the Bretton Woods system ended in 1971 when the US dollar convertibility to gold was terminated. So long the gold standard and commodity-linked money. Paper money is no longer backed by gold or anything else tangible, but just faith. Welcome to the world of fiat currencies. So how does paper hold any value if it's not backed by anything? Well, that's where concepts like legal tender come in. The fiat system, which we still use today, has governments assign value to a currency, declaring it a legal tender. This means a government decides whether a medium of payment will be recognized for financial transactions, trade settlement, or commerce in a country or jurisdiction. Some fiat currencies like the US dollar and the euro are recognized internationally and used for global trade because they are backed by some of the most credible governments and largest economies in the world. To sum up, a fiat currency has value because a government uses its power to enforce this value, or because exchanging parties agree to its value. Some may even describe this as a collective illusion. It's not hard to see how problems could occur with this. Let's see some examples when the fiat currency system backfired under the control of irresponsible or corrupt governments prone to economic and political mismanagement. At the time of the independence of Zimbabwe from British colonial rule in 1980, the Zimbabwean dollar was worth about 1.25 US dollars. Soon after, inflation started creeping up and got completely out of control when President Robert Mugabe began confiscating land from the white farming community in 1998, resulting in a near total collapse in food production and the decline of foreign investment. In order to help pay the government's expenditures, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe started printing more and more banknotes with higher and higher face values. As a result, the annual inflation rate rose from 32% in 1998 to 231 million percent in July of 2008, when official statistics stopped being reported. After that, it was estimated by international economists that the hyperinflation peaked at a staggering annual rate of 89.7 sextillion percent in mid-November 2008. The monthly peak rate was 79.6 billion percent, which is equivalent to a 98% daily rate. In other words, prices were pretty much doubling every day. In 2009, the Zimbabwean dollar was completely abandoned in favor of using only foreign currencies. Once one of the richest countries in Africa, Zimbabwe descended into economic chaos, largely blamed on its government's policies. This is an extreme example of how the trust in a fiat currency can be lost, leading to economic turmoil. In Zimbabwe, the collective illusion quickly turned into a collective disbelief. This is not an isolated example of a currency crisis, though. There are many countries around the world where local currencies hold hardly any value, and people prefer keeping their savings in the so-called hard foreign currencies or other alternatives like gold and, most recently, Bitcoin. Currently, Venezuela is undergoing a period of raging inflation of its own. In January 2018, inflation was 84% for the month, implying an annualized rate of 150,000%, meaning prices would double every 35 days. Now, the Venezuelan government has come up with an innovative proposed solution for a stable currency, the Petro, a government-issued cryptocurrency running on blockchain and backed by the country's oil reserves. The Petro is intended to be a legal tender in Venezuela, which becomes the first country in the world to issue a sovereign cryptocurrency. It remains to be seen how successful or not this experiment will be. Such a centrally issued cryptocurrency is a far cry from the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and its digital siblings. However, it should also be noted that with its actions, Venezuela is recognizing and reaffirming the great advantages and potential blockchain holds.
That was a real simple, stupid concept of currency, right? And I think if the family saw the dynamic in Zimbabwe, this was once the richest country in what we call Africa. Al-Kibalan. Some of the key words that you heard was when Robert Mugabe decided to take the farmland from the white farmers, this is how the currency was manipulated. Basically equating to when the brother who, I own the land, I'm the steward of the land. And this ties to the West as well. Not to digress. So in the West, before there was a such thing as gold currency, because we know our ancestors in North America, Central America had gold teeth, gold ornaments. Gold was plentiful, so it wasn't as valuable. But the medium of trade was grains, whiskey, all of these different things that weren't accessible to Europe. Those who now pretty much control this thing that we call economics, finances. So saying that to say in Zimbabwe, the reaction of those who print the money was, okay, we're going to start manipulating your currency because you're taking your land back. When we have this B1 Ag conversation, we do specifically tie it around agriculture and the importance of us being a production class. There's one thing being a producer. I'm creating the thing of value versus a consumer. I'm just consuming it, and whoever controls the money is going to decide what that price is. When we look at nations like China, even Venezuela, one of the reasons they're successful, it isn't necessarily because they just came over and and drilled everybody, it's because they've come up with a value system of, hey, we can produce the things that the world needs cheap. We've come together codified to produce things cheaply. And so, in China, on a global scale, they're not eating butter biscuits. There's no sort of leverage that the West or any of these other nations have to intrigue China to work against their best interests. So how can we apply this lesson to the melanated community? How does this tie to agriculture? If you saw that first piece of the video, when we talk about Black to the Garden, the original way of doing trade was, I'm gonna give you something of value for something of value, and they used the horse and a cow, which are agricultural products. Like I said, one of the original forms of what we call currency in North America was grains. Grains specifically used for alcohol and obviously food. So when we talk about getting Black to the garden, how do we get Black to what was valuable?
Because the video also showed that the value of these currencies and these mediums of exchange, different types of ways that they came up to evaluate currency, it changes. It changes. This just because this bill is valuable today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be valuable tomorrow. And that's just like being caught up in trends. It's like, this type of fashion might be expensive and valuable today, but will it be valuable and expensive next season? So we need to really begin to recognize and entrench ourselves in things that don't lose value, things that are always going to be valuable. And food is one of those things. Agriculture is one of those things. It's always going to be valuable. Land ownership is always going to be valuable. Being able to produce your own food is always going to be valuable. These are some of the skills, knowledge, and tangible assets that we need to make sure that is in our portfolio and within our reach.
I got a can of some kale seeds, right? In a time of starvation, we see that stores, the shelves are going empty. We see the shipping containers across the world right now aren't being unloaded, aren't being distributed throughout the country. When we talk about B1 Ag, we're not saying, hey, everybody just stop what you're doing and start growing food. I mean, that would be cool, but we really break down, okay, there's different niches in the way that these seeds turn into a product that somebody can consume. Now, I can print dollars all day, and actually, I can't. The Federal Reserve can print these all day. I'm not going to put this in my mouth, but there's not any nutritional value in this. And it doesn't, you can print 1 million of these, and I could eat 1 million of them. There's no nutritional value, and I could probably get sick at the end of the day, literally. Versus I plant 1 million of these, you have 1 million, multiple different niches from getting these from the form of a seed to kale. Just using this as example. Am I saying that, hey, let's just forget about the money. Let's stop saying cut the check. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But we see we're in a world where, okay, there's multiple pieces on this multi-dimensional chess game. There's a quote from Mayor Amschel Rothschild. A lot of people in the conspiracy theory realm and just people that understand money, Rothschild is one of the richest families in the world. In 1815, Rothschild made his famous statement, I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls the British money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply. Now, you're not going to have any money if there's not something of value being produced to generate this money. When we talk about agriculture, the colonists didn't come over to North America once again just because it was a beautiful place. They came over because there was value in the land. Well, we look forward to going down to the All Black National Convention down in Orlando to meet with some of the real estate moguls, your Jay Morrisons. Real estate is every bit of agriculture, right? Like, okay, if I have no land to plant these seeds And so there's a mindset that needs to go into, okay, just the real estate piece of it. There's financing. And so, yes, we understand we're in a world where the majority of the billions of people on the planet agree that a dollar has value. Whether it has value or not, you're more likely going to get land with multiple ones of these than these. But as a melanated family, do we have a codified approach of being able to leverage all of these different areas of human activity, ultimately to feed ourselves, and then secondarily to conduct commerce? You know, what do they say? History repeats itself. I was thinking to myself the other day, when you think about our attachment on a lot of our digital devices, in many ways, we're reverting back to being cavemen. You know, a lot of people don't know how to communicate with themselves. The spark of ingenuity in some groups, I'm not going to say the melanated family, because we've had to work with limited resources our whole experience. But a lot of people are reverting back to the Stone Age. And so you have a mix of the Jetsons and the Flintstones. And this is the situation we find ourselves in today. But once again, I have a very bright outlook, because we've never, you know, within our gene line had this opportunity to really assert ourselves and where this world is going. How do we gain this leverage? It's getting back to being a production class. This isn't going to come overnight. This isn't going to come over next year, 2 or 3 years. But the degree that we're able to plant these seeds in the minds of our kids, like, hey, don't just accept a job, you know, a token job, you know, this DEI as the goal, right? Because all it takes, okay, I get a handful of these Negroes, and okay, I ain't got to give y'all nothing else. I ain't got to give y'all no more tangibles, because you got you a black representative. You got you a black senator. I gave y'all a black president. So calm down, heal. The days of butter biscuits are over. We need to get to the bread, family. We need to understand how to cultivate this week. I'm saying this metaphorically, but this is literal. He who controls the money controls the nation. Well, he who controls the commodity controls who's making the money. And I mean, it's a very simple equation.
I'm about to share with the family just a video talking about value. Because again, the economic definition of value deals with scarcity. So when you're dealing with scarcity, if something is needed and not there, it becomes more valuable. So if you're hungry and there's very little food, that food becomes more valuable than a Bugatti. If you're thirsty and there's no water, that water holds more value than some Balenciagas. Now, at the end of the day, food and water ultimately are some of the most valuable commodities on this planet. You know, but they've tricked us into thinking otherwise. So I'd like to y'all just play this video for y'all. Check this out.
Imagine you're on a game show and you can choose between 2 prizes, a diamond or a bottle of water. It's an easy choice. The diamonds are clearly more valuable. Now imagine being given the same choice again, only this time you're not on a game show, but dehydrated in the desert after wandering for days. Do you choose differently? Why? Aren't diamonds still more valuable? This is the paradox of value, famously described by pioneering economist Adam Smith. And what it tells us is that defining value is not as simple as it seems. On the game show, you were thinking about each item's exchange value, what you could obtain for them at a later time. But in an emergency like the desert scenario, what matters far more is their use value, how helpful they are in your current situation. And because we only get to choose one of the options, we also have to consider its opportunity cost, or what we lose by giving up the other choice. After all, it doesn't matter how much you could get from selling the diamond if you never make it out of the desert. Most modern economists deal with the paradox of value by attempting to unify these considerations under the concept of utility, how well something satisfies a person's wants or needs. Utility can apply to anything from the basic need for food to the pleasure of hearing a favorite song, and will naturally vary for different people and circumstances. A market economy provides us with an easy way to track utility. Put simply, the utility something has to you is reflected by how much you'd be willing to pay for it. Now imagine yourself back in the desert, only this time you get offered a new diamond or a fresh bottle of water every 5 minutes. If you're like most people, you'll first choose enough water to last the trip, and then as many diamonds as you can carry. This is because of something called marginal utility, and it means that when you choose between diamonds and water, you compare utility obtained from every additional bottle of water to every additional diamond. And you do this each time an offer is made. The first bottle of water is worth more to you than any amount of diamonds, but eventually you have all the water you need. After a while, every additional bottle becomes a burden. That's when you begin to choose diamonds over water. And it's not just necessities like water. When it comes to most things, the more of it you acquire, the less useful or enjoyable every additional bit becomes. This is the law of diminishing marginal utility. You might gladly buy 2 or 3 helpings of your favorite food, but the 4th would make you nauseated, and the 100th would spoil before you could even get to it. Or you could pay to see the same movie over and over until you got bored of it or spent all of your money. Either way, you'd eventually reach a point where the marginal utility for buying another movie ticket became 0. Utility applies not just to buying things, but to all our decisions. And the intuitive way to maximize it and avoid diminishing returns is to vary the way we spend our time and resources. After our basic needs are met, we'd theoretically decide to invest in choices only to the point they're useful or enjoyable. Of course, how effectively any of us manage to maximize utility in real life is another matter. But it helps to remember that the ultimate source of value comes from us, the needs we share, the things we enjoy, and the choices we make.
We all have to eat. Everybody has to eat. I think it was interesting. One of they said, once your core needs are met, then you can start doing business. So when we talk about getting black to the gardens, what is our core need as a melanated family, regardless of what part of the diaspora we're from, what part of the aisle we're on, so to speak, we have to eat. And so when we wonder about this dynamic of butter biscuits, this dynamic of, us undermining each other in all of these different areas of activity, it's because we haven't collectively secured the basic need of eating. Like any other form of politics we may engage in won't matter if at the end of all of it, we're still dependent upon another source, because everything's going for power. Everything's vying for power. And so we know in a natural setting, you have to eat to gain power. And so when I talk about agriculture, it isn't just to romanticize, hey, let's just plant plants and be happy. It's okay, let's really think this thing out in a codified manner. We've continually had these conversations about Bill Gates and his ilk, but they've understood for me to do whatever I want to do to obtain power, I need to inject myself in the way that people around the world eat. And so what do they say? Follow the money. You can learn from good people and bad people. We're not here to disparage or throw shade on anybody, more so than looking at our community. What are we doing to attain power? We could get the reparations, but then it could turn into something like in Zimbabwe. Okay, I'll give y'all zillions of dollars, but the day after, I'm gonna take the value from these dollars. And so you can have a zillion of them, but when you go to do commerce, when you go to buy food that you need to eat, fuel that you need to move about, it ain't enough. And so what are we doing to start at the seed of what drives an economy? Many of us talk about this nation, this black nation, this Hebrew nation, this melanated nation. We're in the wilderness right now, family. They can print dollars so we can get seeds. How are we preparing not only ourselves, those of us that are a little bit older, but how are we cultivating our seeds once this wilderness phase is done? How are we cultivating our seeds to build this nation that we speak of? Are we talking about gardening, growing food? The ability to grow a garden gives you the intrinsic understanding of how to grow a plot. Once you learn how to fill a whole plot, then you'll start understanding commodities, raw goods. This is what the colonists came to the West for, and this is what the colonists went around the world for. for the natural products that the land produces, the natural products that the Most High said put us here as the stewards of. And so do we forego that original task of be fruitful and multiply to wait on somebody to print something for us, or do we make sure we're secure on either way that this goes? You can't go wrong with learning how to produce your own food and then feeding one another.
The same way they print money, they're trying to print food, y'all. They want to print food the same way they print money. Literally, 3D print food. So it's very important that we see growing food as valuable. It's very important that we see our Black farmers as valuable. Make sure that you go to change.org and sign the petition for the president to release the funds of the American Rescue Plan to Black farmers immediately. They need their debt relief. Every bit helps. If you watching this, press pause, on the replay, like press pause, write down this URL. President released the funds of the American Rescue Plan to Black farmers immediately. Or you can also hit us up at b1aghiphop@gmail.com and we'll pass this link on to you. But we need to sign this petition to make sure that these for our Black farmers get their debt relief and get this, and get whatever help is due to them so they can continue to produce food for us, food for the nation.
Today, we got the time today, right? I'm going to read a few passages from the United Independent Compensatory Code concept by the elder Neely Fuller. A lot of us come across these organizations. Some of us have people around non-melanated people to say, oh my God, it is horrible what's been done to y'all. How can I help? How can I help? One of the things that's been thrown at us, which was the premise of this conversation, was DEI. Maybe I'll just have the people, your managers, your supervisors, to understand how they're hurting your feelings. These little racist ways they're dealing with you. And so we'll do these classes. We'll do these workshops. We'll do these conferences where we teach people, this racism hurts people. But what Neely Fuller broke down is called, and this is page 55, compensatory repair process. And this is when you have these allies, these people that say they want to help. Some of the basic and correct things to do when seeking to repair damage to non-white people caused and or promoted by the establishment, maintenance, expansion, and or the refinement of the system of white supremacy are as follows. And so as we're having this B1 Ag conversation, I want the family to apply this to agriculture, right? Definitely, I encourage you to fill out this petition, but there's so much more that needs to be done. Find the truth about the harm done to the non-white people as direct and indirect result of the establishment, maintenance, expansion, and the refinement of the system of white supremacy. So this has already been done. When they came out with the Farmers of Color Act, they were very concise and articulating, for the last few decades, we've been discriminating Black farmers. We haven't been giving them access to capital that they would need to keep their operations going. And so we can skip that step. It's already known what the violation was. And this was as a result of the establishment. These were racialized loan practices. This was people getting their land taken. You go to the Deep South, you hear about these stories of the Klan and other factions literally burning people's houses up, running them off of their land. And so we know this was a violation. And so you coming to say, I'm sorry that my grandfather burnt your family's land down. No. Okay, for what you lost, I have to repair this. I have to give you more land. If you lost 5 acres, I got to give you 5 acres. If you lost 500, I got to give you 500. This is tangible. Replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, balance between people, by using a compensatory code, thought, speech, and action that is specifically designed to repair all of the damage done to non-white people as a direct or indirect result of the system. If I took 500, I have to give you 500 back. I'm not going to give you a study to see now how did me taking this 500 from this elder in the early 1900s that kept his family of dozens, hundreds of offspring, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They weren't able to gain wealth because we know there's wealth in land. And so these were a lot of decades of opportunities that these families weren't able to gain something because the thing that their ancestors had gained for them, land, learning how to produce this land, was taken from them. And so accept no less, accept no apology. Apologies are cool, but you can't eat those. Continue the repair process until there is no longer any damage to be repaired. I'm not going to read all of this, right? Continue the repair process until there is no longer any damage to be repaired and compensated. That pertains to all areas of activity. The area of activity we're talking about right now, family, to keep it simple, stupid, is our ability to feed ourselves. Hen talks about his grandfather down in South Georgia. He was able to feed, and I've seen Hen's family. These are big, strong, stoic, melanated people. And this was because grandfather understood how to leverage his skill of growing food to feed the people that need it. This is produces your aunties and uncles that was able to go out and work, produce your cousins, that produces just your second cousins and third cousins. And so when this land, when our connection to producing food was cut, this cut many of our abilities to create the wealth. When we talk about fiat, this cut that ability to gain that. I hope the family's not losing the connection between agriculture and where we see ourselves at today economically. Like I said, agriculture isn't just the people producing the food, it's also the people processing it. It's the people that's storing it. It's the people that's doing the science to figure out better ways to produce the food. It's the distributors. It's the marketers. It's all of the different niches within getting food from seed to table. And so until, we have these people that want to help, until those are replenished to the degree that they were taken, there, reparations is a deep, yes, there's fiat involved in reparations. There is many checks to be cut, but there's also land. There's also, hey, it's going to make me go in debt to relearn how to get back to the garden, relearn how to grow food. This is why we have this conversation. I know the sister Vicky Dillard talks about power is coming from the grassroots right now, BGR, Black grassroots. We got to make this a part of our culture now, yesterday, that we need to learn how to plant these seeds. So the 2-year-olds of today, the 5-year-olds of today, because they got a plan for the 5 and 11-year-olds, family. But we got to make sure we have a counter plan, just in case they want to keep kicking the can down the road and do these studies. Just in case they want to keep, we'll just give you these workshops so we can study how our discrimination has hurt you. We have to see the value in what's been taken from us. This word value. And we can't wait for somebody else to place a price tag on that value. That has to be something within our households, within the individual, within the community. And to the degree that we can revalue our ability to produce, because it's already in our genes, family, which are being manipulated by the... We have opportunities.
We all have opportunities. We all have to eat, and we all need to see the value in food production and just being able to procure food and making that a priority. Right now, for a lot of people, the food is not scarce. For those, for some people, food is not scarce. Oh, you mean I'm not hungry? I'm not hungry. I can always go to this drive-through and get something to eat. I can swipe this card and get something to eat. But we can't become complacent because, just because we're not hungry today doesn't mean that we won't be hungry tomorrow. And we need to be able to make sure that we're food secure any day, anytime, during any weather. It's a great conversation today, Farmer Brown. Resist the biscuits. Let's get to the bread. The bread is that's what really matters. The bread, the proverbial bread, the daily bread. That's what really matters. Not just some biscuits. So, if you like what do we want to build this platform? We want you to like, share, subscribe. but also you can donate to B1 Ag at the Cash App, $ B1 Ag Hip Hop. Make sure that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, holler at us. B1AgHipHop@gmail.com. You know, you can also check us out at the Black Boss channel. And if you really want to learn how to grow your own food, we have a great program for you. We'll do this in a way that is not only informative, but entertaining. And it's something that you can do with your whole family as well as your kids. Let's teach our kids how to grow. Let's make sure that they know how to grow. You know, teaching them how to grow, it also teaches them how to nurture. And we can do this at healthyblackfood.com. Go to healthyblackfood.com and sign up. It's something you can do for your whole family and participate. I think every family needs a family garden. Every family needs their own garden. You know, not just, you know, it's almost like a little science lab. You know, a science lab that produces for you to eat. You know, and also teaches your kids how to nurture. It teaches them discipline. You know, there's a lot of different knowledges. There's a lot of different knowledge that comes along with growing your food. You know, problem solving. You know, like critical thinking. You know, these are things that are lost because we're just so used to swiping and letting the computer do all the thinking for us. Let's get back to using our brains. You know, exercising that tool between our two shoulders. You know, use this brain of ours because it is this brain that we have. This is what computers are based on, to mimic the human brain. So let us not think that these computers and this technology is greater than what the Most High endowed us with. So at the end of the day, Farmer Brown, if you really want to know something that's valuable, what do the people need to do, bro?
If you really want to know something, let's learn all of the components that go into these value meals from seed to table. If you really want to know something, let's learn how to grow something.
There it is. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. Let's make it through this weekend. Let's grow. Let's never stop growing. Hug somebody today. Tell them you love them. Until next time, I'm John Henry Harris. We have Farmer Brown MC. This is B1 Ag, Daily Bread Podcast.
Seeds, paper. In the wilderness, what's going to help you more, family? Pharaoh showed his hand.
There it is. So, until next time, we'll see you soon. B1 Ag, we're out. Peace.